So part of what meditation trains is the ability to sit there. And part of it is, dealing with feelings like you don't have enough time. Part of it is dealing with the feelings of like, oh my God, I'm fidgety and I don't want to be in my body now and I don't know what to do. And when you're able to get through those feelings and sit there and be with yourself, you have like come to a brand new level of mastery that gives you a new set of skills and capabilities that you bring to the rest of your life.
You're currently listening to Ariel Garten. She is a neuroscientist, innovator, and entrepreneur whose driving purpose is to empower and help others overcome mental obstacles in order to live healthy, happy lives and reach their maximum potential. She is the CEO of Muse, the brain sensing headband. And I love this product. I love this technology. I love being able to put this headband on and monitor my brain waves and see when I'm in a relaxed state. It helps me meditate. It helps me recenter. It helps me get prepared for the day. I love this conversation with Ariel. It really does give me a different perspective about meditation. It gives me the science behind why we meditate. And I know you guys are going to love it too. So let's get this thing started, guys. Let's get after it. This is Your Superior Self, episode 82, Finding Your Muse, with neuroscientist, innovator, and entrepreneur Ariel Garten. In chapter 2 of his book titled The Untethered Soul, Michael A. Singer says, "Your inner growth is completely dependent upon the realization that the only way to find peace and contentment is to stop thinking about yourself. You're ready to grow when you finally realize that the I, who is always talking inside, will never be content. It always has a problem with something. Honestly, when was the last time you really had nothing bothering you? Before you had your current problem, there was a different problem. And if you're wise, you will realize that after this one's gone, there will be another one." What is going on, Superior Nation? Welcome back to Your Superior Self. I'm Trey Downs, and I apologize about the raspiness of my voice. I have encountered dangerous strands of man cold, as my wife would say. I actually got it from her, and yeah, it feels like death. She continuously makes fun of me and how sickly I get whenever I catch the man cold. But I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to kick this cold, but it just keeps hindering me from doing my everyday routine and my everyday exercises to help get me better and prepare for the day. I tell you what, if you go without meditating, if you go without running or exercising, or if you go longer, if your diet gets jacked up like mine has been for the last 3 or 4 days, you definitely feel a difference. I feel a difference mentally and emotionally. I feel like chemically off a little bit, just with my body, because I'm used to fasting in the morning, and I've been eating some junk food just because I don't feel good, and it's what is around, and I feel like when I wake up, that sugar burn off is there, and it's like making me hungry in the morning. I'm used to not eating anything and just fasting and burning off that nastiness in your gut, and I just feel completely different. And when you're off your game, like this reaffirms my belief that you have to have daily practices in your life to get you better prepared for your day, better prepared for your week, and that it definitely helps you gain an edge on your competition. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. Ariel Garten has joined the show. She is the CEO of Muse, the headband, and I love her product. I love it to death because I use it all the time. It helps me realize when I'm in relaxing states, and it helps me recenter my focus, and it helps me recenter my mind when I'm meditating to help me silence out that voice in my head. And that's the reason why I chose to read Michael A. Singer's excerpt from his book, because we all have that roommate that lives in our mind that just continuously talks, and it's hard. I mean, we're always gonna have thoughts in our minds. We're always gonna have these these problems that just keep arising and we keep thinking about them. But that's the best part about meditation, is being able to focus on your breath and focus on yourself and try to quiet that mind, to try to quiet the thoughts, all the negativity that is associated with the roommate in your mind. And then it helps you, it definitely helps you gain clarity on your spirituality. Well, it does for me, and I hope it does that for you, because it's an important piece of your growth process, and it helps you so many ways mentally. And we go over that in the interview. She talks about the science behind meditation. Before I jump into the interview, I want to say thank you for downloading this. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with me today. I really do appreciate it. If this is your first time listening to the episode, please hit subscribe and leave a rating and a review. It helps me scale the podcast. If you want to join my email list and become a member of Superior Nation and have every episode sent directly to your email, please head over to yoursuperiorself.com and sign up for my email list. Get over there and find some behind the scenes information about this show. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can do that at tdowns80, and on Twitter at DownsTrey. You can check me out on Facebook at Trey Downs. I have a secondary page for Superior Nation itself. You can go over there and see some photos of behind the scenes notes and blog posts in relation to the show. But I want to say thank you to you guys. It really is an honor to be able to produce episodes for you and have you guys listen to them and respond and give me feedback about the show. Thank you guys so much for listening. So without further ado, here is Ariel Garten.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back. I'm fired up tonight because I have an excellent guest for you. Her name is Ariel Garten. She is the CEO of probably one of my favorite brands and products, Muse headband. Ariel, thank you and welcome to the show.
My sincere pleasure, and it's an absolute joy to be here. Hey, guys.
So Muse, the brain sensing headband, can you just really quick sum it up and give us the lowdown on your product?
Sure. Muse is a wearable device that tracks your brain while you meditate. It's a clinical grade EEG, like the same thing they have in a hospital. It tracks your brain during meditation to let you know when you're in focused attention and when your mind has wandered. So you get real-time feedback on your brain during this practice, and then after the fact, you get data, stats, charts, graphs, points, things that show you what your brain was doing and keep you motivated to keep you going on with the practice. Because we all know meditation's amazing, but most people don't totally know what to do. They don't totally know what's going on in their mind, and they don't know how to do it as effectively as possible, and they can't track what's going on. So we solved all of those problems by creating Muse.
So did you come up with the technology, the actual tech behind the app?
So this was a very long journey in the creation of this device. I actually started working in a research lab in 2002 with Dr. Steve Mann. He's one of the inventors of the wearable computer. He's the guy that literally created Google Glass before Google did. And he had an early brain-computer interface system that we were using. So it was a single EEG electrode that you would attach to the back of your head. And by shifting your brain state, by focusing and relaxing, we could then use that to control things like lights. So when you focus, the light would get brighter. We started creating concerts where we could make music with your mind. And I stood back and said, wow, this is unbelievable. We're literally interacting with the world directly with our brain. People need to know about this. And so I started the creation of what eventually became Muse. I got together with my co-founders, Chris Amony. He was one of Steve's master students at the time, and he was just this brilliant engineer. And Trevor Coleman, who was at that point actually a promoter, and he just knew how to make things that people loved. Knew how to create events that people loved being at. And the three of us formed a company trying to commercialize this technology. And we did crazy things, like let people control the lights on the CN Tower with their brain from across the country at the Olympics. We created Star Trek games that you could control with your brain. The whole time saying this is awesome, but not really useful. Like, it's not super useful to try to badly control a light with your mind when it's really, really hard to do. But through the process of teaching people to focus, to relax, to shift their brain state, we recognized that we were doing something far more valuable, which is teaching people to control the technology inside their own head. And that if we could sort of flip the screen on it, flip the idea, we could actually create a product that would give people insight into their own brain process and help them improve their mind and their life. And thus Muse as a meditation tool was born.
I love it. I'm absolutely 100% an advocate for Muse the headband. Like I use it. I think the longest streak that I've had is 51 days. It challenges me to really steady my mind and focus on my breathing. I've used every trick, the trick before I found the headband, and it really helps me settle down and concentrate on my breath and focus on my breathing. And it's really seriously helped me in my everyday life. Now, what is some of your background with neuroscience?
I'm sitting here going like, awesome. Yeah. Woo. Because that's why we built this. That's what it's supposed to do. And it's just so incredible when you hear people tell you that it really works. So it's amazing. So my own background, I was trained as a neuroscientist, and so going into the space of the brain and understanding what goes on inside the brain seemed really natural to me. But I also grew up in a very entrepreneurial family, and I always knew that I was going to create my own business and create my own idea, and I could never imagine working for somebody else. And so at some point along the way, I got trained as a psychotherapist. I was teaching my patients to meditate, and they would never do it. And then when there was the opportunity to merge my background in neuroscience with a technology to create a product that was going to make the world better, it just was like this magic pairing.
You don't see too many like scientists / entrepreneurs. I think the only one that I really think about is probably Elon Musk. Like everyone else, if you think about it, there's always been somebody who has been either, behind the scenes, doing the tech, and then you had the other front guy doing the entrepreneur business stuff. Like, obviously the standout would be Apple. You had Steve Jobs, and you had, why am I forgetting his name right now? Wozniak, right? Like the creator of the first Mac or whatever. That's crazy. Like you're both. Like you're a blend. You're like half and half, entrepreneur, scientist. Like that's insane.
I am a blend. On the other hand, I still needed a whole team. I still had, Chris, the chief engineer, creating the hard tech while I was working on the brain part of the tech, while, Trevor is working on the experience part of the tech. As much as we could all have a little piece of it inside ourselves, this was so much bigger than any one person.
So I can sit here and say the entire night, meditation's the best. Meditation's awesome for you. You need to do it. But what are some of the scientific terms, some of the scientific reasons why you need to meditate?
There are hundreds of them. Really, there's over 1,000 published studies talking about the value of meditation across a broad range of domains, from its increasing your productivity to decreasing your stress to improving your performance to looking at students improving their GRE scores to the improvements that you can make in your body and your mind. It's really overwhelming, the value that meditation can bring to your life. And it seems kind of crazy that one activity can potentially improve so many different domains. Should we start by diving into meditation more specifically and what it is and what exactly it's doing for you, and then I can get into the science?
Absolutely.
Cool. So for anybody who doesn't know what meditation is, because we all kind of have an idea of what it is and we all kind of don't. Most people just think your mind goes blank and that's it. Well, when you meditate, your mind doesn't go blank. Your mind never goes blank. We hope our minds don't go blank, actually. So the most common meditation that people do is a focused attention on the breath exercise. In a focused attention exercise, your mind's not going blank. You're choosing to focus your attention on a single object. Typically, it's your breath. So in a focused attention exercise, you'll focus your attention on your breath. Your mind will begin to wander away from your breath because all our minds wander all the time. It's then your job to notice that your mind has wandered away and make the choice to bring your attention back to your breath. And then you sit back on your breath again, and then you do it all over again. Your mind eventually wanders, you notice, and you return. And it's the notice and return that's really like the bench press rep at the gym. That's the real work of meditation. The noticing that your mind has wandered, making the choice to not follow your wandering thoughts, and then choosing to come back into the present moment. And when you do this super simple exercise, some really phenomenal things can begin to happen. So first of all, you realize that you don't need to be thinking the thoughts that are in your head. That's a big concept. So most of us go through life just with thoughts that are thinking us, like our brain is going, and you wander through life and you're thinking the thoughts that are in your head and you assume that that's the way it's supposed to be. We're on autopilot. It turns out as soon as you choose to take your mind off of a wandering thought and put it elsewhere, you've changed that relationship. You are no longer at the mercy of your own mind. You can now say, nope, I don't want to think that. I want to think something else. I want to take my brain elsewhere. So you all of a sudden change your relationship to your thoughts. Now, once you do that, you can now have control over, dominion over your own mind. You're not at the mercy of your thoughts. And that means you're also not at the mercy of the stories that your thoughts are telling you. So most of us live in an experience where our mind is making up stories all the time, and we just kind of believe it because those are the thoughts in our head. And as soon as you say, no, actually, I don't want to buy into that. I don't want to follow that. I want to take my mind elsewhere. You can also say, actually, I don't believe that story is true. I don't want to keep living that story or thinking that story. And you can begin to change the story that you have about yourself. Super powerful.
That is powerful. That is, I mean, changing your own story. Like, just think about that for a second. Like, you know how scary that is? I mean, because we get comfortable in what we're doing today. And to even think about that, I mean, you got to prepare yourself mentally.
And you, as much as you have to prepare yourself mentally, with meditation at a certain point, it just starts to happen. That you, once you start to sort of reject the stories in your mind, you realize that you have the freedom to choose your own stories about yourself. And so it's not so much the scary point where you start rejecting it and it's this big coming of age moment. It's just a gradual realization that you actually have control over your own narratives in every domain in your life.
At what point in your life did this really come to you? Like, when did you become conscious to meditation and some of the advantages that it gives you?
So as a neuroscientist, I knew the literature about meditation. As a psychotherapist, I was teaching meditation to my patients. And as an entrepreneur myself, I sucked at meditation. My brain was always all over the place. I had multiple streams of thoughts, multiple things that I wanted to be doing. And the thought of not actively thinking about any of them was totally terrifying. And so anytime I would sit down to meditate, my brain would bounce all over the place. It'd be like, this sucks. I'm bad at this. I hate being bad at things. Let me just not do this now. So I very much had the same problem that most people have with meditation. And it was only through, despite knowing how great it was, and it was only through the process of building Muse that I myself was able to sit down and begin to meditate. And I was able to be like, oh, this is the state I'm supposed to be in. Okay, this is not scary. This is how I can stick with my breath. Okay. And then I began to feel the power and the changes in my life. And then I began to experience some of the shifts. And then, the whole world of meditation opens up to you.
Yeah. The one thing I like about your app and your, the headband is like, it tells you when your mind is at ease, like when you're really not really, you're in a calm state. And then that's when you hear the birds in the back room. And then usually it depends, right? Like, we all have our good and bad days. And I know some mornings when I wake up and I meditate, it's like I can't, for some weird reason, I can't be calm. Like, you hear the noise, because I listen to the desert, right? Like, I listen to the desert setting because it reminds me of my favorite book, The Alchemist. And it kind of puts me in that setting that, I feel like I'm in Egypt with the pyramids, and it's very powerful, and it's very spiritual for me. And, a lot of the wind and the sand, I mean, sometimes it doesn't go away. And then sometimes I get to that point where I rack up the, birds, the calm states. I don't think is there a right way or a wrong way to meditate though?
So there are lots and lots of different forms of meditation. Focused attention is one of the most common ones. And in focused attention, you're trying to do this exercise, which is focus your attention on your breath. Notice that your mind has wandered and return. And so there are lots of ways that you can work with that practice, that some might say, if you're, for example, choosing to follow your thoughts, then you're not necessarily meditating. And then there are other practices that have different directions that lead to similar ends.
Now, I've definitely talked to a couple of other guys that meditate, and like they have like different viewpoints. Like, some guys don't want to think about anything. Like, they'll just focus on their breath, and they'll breathe in, they'll count their breaths, or they'll just focus in on breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. And there are some guys that that will do that at the beginning, but if thoughts come in, then they'll start to write them down because they don't want them to escape, because they feel like those are like the truest of truth thoughts, because they're coming from them from like deep inside of them or mentally. And I don't know. I feel like I'm learning different ways to meditate, right? Like, so I just watched something today, and this one was about, because like I like to lay down, I like to close my eyes, I like to be comfortable, and I like to really try to focus in on my breath. But this guy was like, you need, open your eyes a little bit, breathe in deep through your diaphragm, suck in at your lower abdomen, and let gravity take out your breath, right? And be observant of the room that you're in, and it kind of like quiets your mind then, because there's nothing going on in the present, and you can really stop your mind from thinking. There are a ton of different methods and ways that you can meditate, but I think a lot of people can't really sit still long enough, right? Like, I feel like the biggest problem that people have, or the biggest complaint, is that they don't have enough time. Which method or which way do you think that people could use, like a quick tip or a quick, hey, look, if you don't have enough time, try this, and you might not see immediate results, but results are pretty much imminent to come?
Okay, I don't want to use this as a moment to bring back Muse, but really that is the answer to this question. I feel bad because I want to be talking about something else, but I'll talk about this quickly, then I'll move on. So Muse is something that allows you to be super efficient in your meditation, because if in a 10-minute meditation your mind wanders, and then it takes you 2 or 3 minutes to notice, and then you return your attention back to your breath, in a 10-minute meditation, maybe you'll get in 5 notice and returns. And as I said, the notice and return is kind of like the bench press rep. That's you doing the work of the meditation. That's you observing yourself and making a choice to do something different. And with Muse, you're instantly notified. Like within half a second, you're notified that your mind has wandered, because the sound's picking up. The desert winds have picked up if you're in the desert soundscape. And so you can immediately bring yourself back. So if during a 10-minute meditation, you can get in, 100 times of noticing and returning. So it becomes this, I don't want to say efficient, because meditation is not about efficiency, but it becomes a way to really get a very dense practice where you're really cued to what's going on, and you're really able to practice that observation and returning. So in our studies with Muse, we look at people doing 10 minutes a day for 6 weeks, and we see, significant changes in their body and their ability to be calm, and in cognitive tasks. So in one study looking at 6 weeks of meditation for 10 minutes, we saw changes in the Stroop task. So in the Stroop, you have a word that's in a color, and it's a very conflicting and difficult situation. You have to say, what color is the word? And people who Mused were able to say the color 50 milliseconds faster. So demonstrating that in a stressful situation with conflicting information, you can make decisions more effectively. So that's the one thing. In general, what do you do if you want to be efficient in your meditation? So part of the practice of meditation is managing all of the urges that your body and mind feels throughout it. So you're sitting there and, at a certain point, you're like, this sucks because I now feel hungry. But rather than following the distraction of your stomach, it is now your job, just like you're, disengage with your thoughts to come back to the present, to be able to disengage and shift the relationship to your bodily sensations. So your stomach might say, let's just go do this thing now. And rather than following your stomach, you're like, nope, stomach, actually, I can be with the hunger and I don't need to follow it. I can just be here in the moment. And what you're training in a lot of ways is your ability to sit with discomfort. So your ability to sit with discomfort probably predicts your success in life. If you think about like all of the people who've been successful, it's because you can push through the thing that's hard. You can stay there when nobody else can. You can do the extra 5 laps that are going to make you stronger, that are going to get you to the finish line when other people can't. It's really your ability to manage and sit with and sit through discomfort, and do so elegantly and gracefully, and in concert with your mind and your body, that allow you to be successful. So part of what meditation trains is the ability to sit there. And part of it is, dealing with feelings like you don't have enough time. Part of it is dealing with the feelings of like, oh my God, I'm fidgety and I don't want to be in my body now and I don't know what to do. And when you're able to get through those feelings and sit there and be with yourself, you have like come to a brand new level of mastery that gives you a new set of skills and capabilities that you bring to the rest of your life.
I absolutely love that. Like, that should be your mission statement, because sitting with it and being uncomfortable and pushing through it and seeing success, and that is exactly what we need to start doing more of, like, in society. Like, I feel like I talk about this all the time. Like, we feel a little bit of, uneasiness and unrest, and we easily quit, right? Like, we don't want to push through and feel the pain. Like, we are easy to give up on dreams and goals just because it feels uncomfortable, and we're not comfortable being uncomfortable, right? And meditation's one way of sitting with it and growing and getting stronger. I love that.
And it sounds so counterintuitive. You're like, well, isn't meditation supposed to be this time when I just sit and it's calm and it's peaceful and it feels beautiful? And at moments it absolutely is. And that's an extraordinary reward. But a lot of meditation is learning how to not fight with yourself. It's this funny dichotomy of you're fighting with yourself to stay there, and you're also learning to not fight with yourself. You're learning to let go so that you can get to that place, so that you can get through all of the layers of shit that are wanting to like pull you away and have you do other things. And just you're letting go of each of those distractions. You're letting go of each of those physiological signals in your body till you can actually get to that place of peace. And it teaches you to get through all of those layers if you're willing to commit to it.
Commitment. You got to commit. So I'm looking at, I have I have the old Muse headband that I got back in 2017, right? So you have the second one that is out currently, right?
Yep. So you have the original Muse, and we now have Muse 2.
So what is the difference between this one and Muse 2?
So Muse, the original Muse, gives you real-time feedback on your brain while you meditate. So you hear the sound of your mind like the weather, like you're in a desert storm or in the rainforest, and you can actually get feedback on your brain and stats. Muse 2 also gives you feedback on your body, so on your heart, your breath, and your movement. So, yeah, it's awesome.
That is awesome. Like, that is awesome. I love that. I cannot wait to pick mine up. So I'm looking at the sensors on the headband, right? So there are sensors for those that can't see. Obviously, there's sensors on the front that go across your forehead, and then I think there are sensors behind the ears that go. And what is that monitoring?
So those are actually EEG sensors. So the same thing that you use in a hospital to track your EEG, your brain activity. These are dry sensor, so you need no gel, no liquid, no garbage. Just dry sensor, little gold or silver chloride electrodes that track your actual electrical activity of your brain. So your neurons communicate electrochemically every time they send a signal back or forth. It's an electrical signal, and the sum total of that electrical signal can be read outside of the head. So we're actually able to read the electrical activity of your brain, and then we've created an algorithm that's able to pretty sensitively know when you're in focused attention and when your mind has wandered. And it's able to actually deliver that information to you so that you can then make choices and act on it.
How did you light up a building? Like, how does that work? Do they have to, like, did the participants have to, like, try to keep calm to power that up?
So that was pretty amazing. So that was during the Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympics. At that point, we were literally 3 people in a basement with experiments that we've done in the lab. And I said, you know what? We all came together and we're like, what's the biggest thing we can do to show people the power of their mind? And we decided that we were going to do a project at the Olympics. We put in a proposal, and I put in a proposal to control the lights on rings, the Olympic rings, and we got a proposal back from the government that said, you can do this, but only if you're able to control the lights on the CN Tower, the Canadian Parliament buildings, and Niagara Falls with people's minds from across the country. So somehow we evolved to this project.
Oh my God.
So we had participants in Vancouver, and we had to teach them in a very short period of time, because this is the Olympics. We had like 17,000 people do this over the course of 17 days, 7,000 people over 17 days. And so we had to, in a minute or two, teach them to know what was going on in their mind. And we used the simple signals of focus and relax. And as somebody focused, that became the signal that we then sent across a virtual private network to the CN Tower, where we had designed the lighting system on it. So as somebody focused, that would then cause the lights to brighten and change. And then if somebody relaxed, that would cause the lights to sort of dim and pulse. And then we were in Vancouver CN Towers in Toronto, which is 3,000 kilometers away. So we had huge screens that actually showed a live feed of the three icons, the tower, the Parliament buildings, or Niagara Falls. So you could see in real time what you were doing with the lighting.
That is awesome.
So yeah, it was amazing.
Wow. What was that feeling like after you guys accomplished that?
It was extraordinary. I mean, this was like a classic, David and Goliath story. We're a tiny little startup. We had unproven technology. We had this massive vision where we bit off so much more than we could chew. We were hired by the government to be their feature showcase to demonstrate what incredible technology could come out of, our home province, Ontario. And we had to do it all for the Olympics on, a fixed timeline and a fixed budget for the whole world to succeed.
Like, what if it didn't work? Like, what would happen? I mean, your company would, that'd be a black eye, right? I mean,
yeah, not working was just not an option. And, it wasn't something it wasn't something that I had ever even considered. It was just, it had to work. That was it. And somehow we pulled together everybody that we knew, every smart engineer we could find. And we pulled it off. Over the 17 days of the Olympics, 7,000 people got to individually interact with the lighting systems on these massive icons and control them with their brain back in 2010.
Phenomenal.
Yes.
That is phenomenal. Like what so far, like, including that, like what has been your biggest success right now?
So I think that's a pretty darn big success. And, it really speaks to the mindset that meditation has given me. This was before we had Muse as a meditation tool, but I always had this mindset. And it's why I'm so passionate about meditation, that you don't have to let limitations hold you back in your own brain, that you can just do and create whatever you want if you don't have a little voice in your head telling you not to do it. So the success that was an insane success. From there, we then, created a clinical grade EEG that you can buy in Best Buy that helps you meditate. We've now had over 100 million minutes of meditation with Muse, 200 published research papers just using Muse. So neuroscientists also use it as a neuroscience tool.
That's phenomenal. That is successful right there. That is,
thank you.
That is amazing. Kudos.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thousands of people whose lives have been touched. Like that's the biggest measure of success. That's, to me, far more important than controlling the lights on a building with your brain.
That is awesome. Have they, I don't know. And I just thought about this just because I was upstairs talking with my kids. Like, do you think that kids, let's say 9 years old, could they meditate?
Totally. So I've spent a lot of time sitting next to various ages of people as they meditate, and kids are actually quite good at doing it. If you give them the right framing, they can get it really, really quickly. And I've sat next to little 5 and 6 year old kids and been like, how are you meditating? They're like, oh, I'm just thinking of growing trees for focused attention and fuzzy bunnies. Growing trees, and she thought about growing trees. The trees would grow, awesome. And she'd be meditating. It was great.
You should have a setting or something like that for your app, for kids. Maybe have a little Muse headband for them, and then have I don't know, little bunnies and trees and things of that nature for the kids side of things. I just feel with all the distractions and all the homework that our kids have to do, and the I know I'm very busy with soccer and all the extracurricular activities. I feel the more that I'm thinking about it right now in the moment, the more I'm thinking that maybe I should definitely get them to meditate more. I mean, even if it's 2 minutes of just stillness and relaxing the mind and thinking and focusing on their breath, how beneficial that could be for them.
It really is. Meditation is a key skill to teach to your kids. So in one study done by Mind Up, it's an organization that teaches meditation in schools. They taught meditation in elementary schools, and they saw 15% improvement in math scores. Super awesome. They also saw an approximately 25% increase in pro-social behavior and 25% decrease in aggression.
That's huge.
Yes.
That's huge, especially with the online bullying and everything that's going on nowadays. That aggression, it's definitely there.
It's massive. In a study that we did with Muse, so Muse is meant for ages 16 and up, but the Kansas State University did a study with grade 8 students, and there they saw a 72% decrease in the kids being sent to the principal's office.
That's always good. Staying out of the principal's office. That was always my goal.
Yes.
I wish I had Muse.
Only you do meditation to teach yourself.
I know, right? But I didn't.
Class.
But where I was from, I didn't have that. Like nobody ever. I'm from a very rural area, and it was like you heard of meditation in the movies. That was it. Like, and I feel like now, obviously, with online, internet and Facebook and Instagram, I think you see it more. But back then, I didn't know about it. How did you find out about it?
So I grew up in downtown Toronto, very urban, and I would see signs for a Buddhist temple where they had Zen meditation, and I would see them just like super old school, Xeroxed on pink paper, put up on the light posts. And I think that was my very first experience with meditation. So I had to be definitely old enough to have read those signs and have them been, at my eye level.
Yeah.
And it was still really weird, and I didn't really know what it was, but I was intrigued. But it was clear that it was an incredibly niche market at that point.
Zen, that Zen moment, right? That Zen environment where you can just be like all just quiet, and every part of your body is just quiet, and you're just honing in with that inner energy that you have, and you're flowing, right? Like that's the object for me anyway. That's where I want to be, because that's where I can focus the most on being a better version of myself. And I can while I'm doing that, I'm also getting better mentally, because it's putting in those reps like you talked about. I'm making my mind stronger. I'm helping my memory. I'm helping my cognition. I'm helping all these different ways that you can improve the brain. That's what I'm doing. And I'm a huge advocate for meditation. I think that everybody should be doing it. I'm going to start exploring more options for my children, just because I feel like we for the kids anyway, it's a lot of screen time, and I feel like a lot of that activity and screen time really not messes with their brain, but it definitely overstimulates them. And sometimes they just need like the quiet, right? Like they just need that part of the day where they're just kind of disconnected from school and homework and pads and all, iPhones or whatever, and just kind of recenter and look inward.
Yeah, and where you can learn how to make different choices. So much of our world is distracted and addicted. And what meditation teaches you to do is let go of distraction and not give in to addiction. So it's really the thing that teaches you to make different choices.
I mean, you've been crushing these quotes. Like you got a book over there or what?
No, they're all yours. You can free for you to use. I don't know where they're coming from. Do you want to talk a little bit about the neuroscience of meditation and how it really changes your brain?
Yeah, absolutely.
My favorite topics, because nobody ever thinks it's actually this dramatic. So let's dive into the brain for a minute. At the front of your head, you have your prefrontal cortex, just behind your forehead. So the bad news is, as you age, your prefrontal cortex thins. So the prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain that's responsible for thinking, planning, organization. It's the thing that separates us from other animals. It is the thing that makes us human. So as you age, it thins. But if you're able to maintain a long-term meditation practice, you can maintain the thickness of your prefrontal cortex even as you age. So in one study by Dr. Sarah Lazar at Harvard, she was looking at a variety of long-term meditators, and she had one guy with a prefrontal cortex thickness of a 23-year-old who was himself 50. So meditation strengthens the prefrontal cortex. It also can downregulate the amygdala. That is if you do a long-term practice. Meditation can also downregulate the amygdala. So the amygdala is the fight or flight center of your brain. It's the thing that is always freaking out when it feels like there's a problem. And these days, it has lots of fodder to keep freaking out even when you're actually safe, because we have news stories, we have things that are constantly spiking it and constantly making it feel like the world is unsafe around it, even when you are at that moment in your home and truly safe. So, and And it likes to freak out at all sorts of things, like when you have a job interview, or when you feel like you might have mayonnaise on your pants, or a wrinkle in them, or your hair is not right. It can really respond at the slightest trigger in ways that are really not helpful to us. Like, who needs to be nervous in a job interview? Does that help? No. So in meditation, part of what you see is kind of like this dance between the prefrontal cortex, which is the parent that can see what's going on, and the amygdala, which is sort of the scared child freaking out all over the place. And so as you practice your meditation practice, you're honing your attention, which is also the domain of the prefrontal cortex, and you're honing your inhibition, which is the domain of the prefrontal cortex, and you're actually able to start sending signals from your prefrontal cortex to your amygdala to say, hey, everything's okay, we can calm down. Prefrontal cortex is kind of like the parent that can see what's going on and calm and regulate the amygdala, the child. So in people with meditation practice, you often see a decrease in activity of the amygdala, and in a long-term practice, you even see a decrease in the size of the amygdala.
So you talked about earlier, I think you said the prefrontal cortex, all animals have it, but something about what makes us human. What was that? The size of it?
So not all animals do, but the size and the existence of a prefrontal cortex and the way we use it is the thing that separates us from other animals and other mammals.
Is it that, or is it so I was literally just thinking about this, not thinking about this, but I was reading something today about what separates us from, mentally in the brain from being an animal, right? Like, is it consciousness, right? Like, is that where consciousness is?
So consciousness is distributed throughout the brain, and where consciousness is a big question, and how it arises is a big question. One of the sort of popular theories of consciousness is that it's called the binding principle. So there's this wave, could be a wave, like a gamma wave, that moves throughout the brain. And at the moment when everything is touched by this wave, everything that is at that moment a percept of your vision, so something that you can see, hear, smell, touch, something that's in your mind at that moment, becomes bound together as being in consciousness. So your eyes, for example, are always taking in information, thousands and thousands and trillions of bits of information at a moment, but you're not conscious of all the stuff that your eyes are taking in because it's not where your attention is. But whatever you're looking at that moment of binding, wherever your attention is at that moment of binding, that is part of what is brought into consciousness. There are lots of other theories. This one is a good one to kind of explain easily. So nobody's quite sure on what creates consciousness, but it's the idea of the information that is, galvanized at that moment of time that you are then aware of. And so meditation is really awareness training, and you spend a lot of time training your attention, which in a lot of ways is synonymous to your awareness, so that you can have choice about your consciousness, what is in your awareness or in your attention at that moment.
It's the best answer I've ever heard about consciousness. It was even better than that article that I read today. So, do you meditate every day?
I do. I absolutely do.
Do you use Muse? Do you use the headband?
I do.
Yeah, you better.
It's the thing that got me into my practice, and it's still the thing that's by my side. And, once you have a deep practice, you can then go and experiment in a million ways. But it's a thing I always come back to.
What's, you like you said earlier, you had Muse, the headband 2 coming out. Like, what's the next best big thing that you guys are working on?
So we talked about it a little bit beforehand. So we've Muse, which gives you real-time feedback on your brain, Muse 2, which is heart, breath, and body. We just brought in guided content. So now what we're working on is really expanding the library of guidance that we have. And we say, if you have a problem, we have a meditation for that. So we have a collection on entrepreneurship that teaches you to, manage the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. There's a college collection for new grads. We just introduced a baseball collection. We did some work for a Major League Baseball team, and we were able to bring some of those meditations in. We have meditations for stress, for sleep, for anxiety. These days, if I wake up in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, I just put on one of our sleep meditations and I'm nicely back out.
That's awesome. So I'm imagining your corporate office, right? Like the headquarters of Muse. I feel like there's like pods everywhere. I feel like there's people meditating all day, every day over there. Is that true?
It's not far. So we do have meditation chairs, like literally pods, like egg chairs that you can sit in to meditate. And people can meditate wherever they want. And I think most people do meditate every day. We're also a very busy office because we're constantly coming up with new stuff and creating new content and, pushing new updates every 2 weeks. So there's a lot going on.
So what is going to be your legacy? Like, what do you want to be remembered for when it's all said and done?
Muse is so many people's legacy. It's me, it's Chris, it's Trevor, it's the whole team. When I think about what my legacy is, it's teaching people that you can change the story in your own head. That little voice that's inside your head telling you you're not good enough, you didn't do it right, I don't know, that little voice is something that you can recognize is not true, and that you have the tools and the techniques and the power to be able to shut it off and push it away. That you can know that you are a capable, phenomenal, awesome person, and there's nothing in your head that needs to hold you back, and no story that you need to believe or buy into that you are anything less than fully worthy.
Ariel, how can people connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram at Ariel's Musings, Twitter, Ariel.Garten, and you can always check out Muse at choosemuse.com.
Thank you so much for joining the show. This has been awesome. This is seriously, I love meditation. I love what you've done. I love your product. I think it's great. Thank you for taking the time.
My sincere and total pleasure.
I want to say thank you to Ariel Garten for joining the show and hanging out with us today. This was a fun interview for me because I love meditating and I love the science behind it. And I hope that you guys learned something about it and that you guys will somehow implement meditation into your daily practices. If this is your first time listening, please hit subscribe. Please leave a rating and a review. It's how I scale the podcast. It's how I get new listeners. It's how I reach others and help them improve to become their superior self. And I want to say thank you for taking the time to download. Thank you for all your feedback, all of your suggestions, and all of your letters and notes of encouragement and emails. I truly love doing this podcast, and it's easy when I have support from you guys. You guys are great. I love all of the feedback. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do that on Instagram at tdowns80. You can do it on Twitter at DownsTrey, and find me on Facebook at Trey Downs. You can also sign up for my email list and receive all of the podcast episodes directly to your email. You can do that by going to yoursuperiorself.com and signing up for my email list. If you don't feel like doing that, you can also text the word superior to 444-999, and that will automatically sign you up for my email list. I have a ton of news and notes that go out each week about the podcast coming up, and it's just nice to be able to go to your inbox and click on it and have the episode directly there instead of going out and having to find it every week, each week on your phone if you don't update or subscribe. So it's a little bit of a shortcut and a little bit of a hack to listen to the podcast. I truly love your support. Thank you guys so much for everything that you do for me. I try to inspire you each week, and it's just been such a great ride. I've been connecting with a ton of great people, and I just appreciate everything that you guys do for the show. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Later.